Cool. All right. So yeah, hi Oka, this is Nadia. So it's nice to finally meet you here on Zoom. So yeah, we're excited to know more about your stories and studying in UK, especially in Newcastle University. So first of all, can you let us know more about yourself, like what you study, where you study, and maybe your current activities now?
Hello everyone, my name is Muhammad Oka Rizona. You can call me just Oka or Jonah, whatever you want to call me. So I'm 25 years old right now. So I just graduated from Newcastle University last year. Basically, I think it's just about 3 or 4 months ago because I was graduated on October or November. So I graduated from the Master of Science in International Marine Environmental Consultancy. So it's more like into environmental and also more about the marine as well in the UK as a consultant. So my current project with my latest project with the client in the UK was with the Natural England, which is one of the biggest NGO in the UK in the environmental field as well. So I did my research close to the Badley Bay in the UK, which is in the northeast area, in the marine side area. So that's all about me right now. I work as an English teacher, as a freelance as well. And also I work as a study abroad mentor in one of the startup in Indonesia as well. And probably in the future, I would like to be a lecturer, but I still wait for the best time to apply for it, hopefully.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, very nice and brief introduction. Thanks, Oka. So you say you study master's program in UK before. So I was curious, like, why did you choose to study in UK, particularly among all the other options out there?
Basically, I'm quite open with all of the opportunities back then. So I applied to almost 20 university and almost about 16 scholarship, if I'm not mistaken, because there are too many scholarship that I applied for last year, the last 2 years, because I really want to study abroad back then. So whatever the country, as long as it match and fit my program, for example, like my majors, like my field of study, so I will go for that scholarship because I just feel like I need to study more and I'm quite interesting with my field of study. So I need to study more rather than to looking for a job. But some people just ask me like, why you don't want to continue your job probably in the past, because I already have my own job in the past. But I feel like I need to study more and I just want to experience studying abroad. So back to the topic about UK. So basically UK is not my first option.
Oh.
That my first option was Korea and also Japan, because a lot of people know that Japan and Korea were really good in the marine science and also like oceanography and fishery, especially like the startup for fishery and the internet of things in the fishery field, something like that, that people will always like refers to Japan and South Korea. I tried the scholarship to Japan and South Korea as well, but I think like my destiny was in the UK. So I applied for a lot of university in the UK. So I applied for 7 university in the UK. So I got 7 LOA or letter of acceptance in the UK as well. And then there was one scholarship called scholarship from Indonesian government, not LPDP, but it called like Beasiswa Pendidikan Indonesia. So basically it come from the Ministry of Education from Indonesia. So I apply on the last day submission, because on the last day submission, I got my first ever letter of acceptance from Newcastle University. That's why like I always talk to myself like this is my destiny, because I apply in the last day for the submission and then I got accepted in that scholarship and in that university. But if someone asks me like, do I regret to study in Newcastle? The answer is absolutely no. That was amazing. And if someone asks me like which university probably that I want to study in the past, like back then, apart from Newcastle, I will answer Queen Mary University of London. I also got the letter of acceptance from Queen Mary University of London, or KIMUL, in marine science field, but it just appeared on August. But back then the scholarship announcement was in July, if I'm not mistaken. So I cannot change the university. But well, I enjoy my journey in Newcastle University. So that's the reason, which is like kind of interesting for me, because that was not my first option, but I get it in Newcastle University, and that's the reason why I was in Newcastle University and in the UK. But I also got accepted in another scholarship, for example, in Taiwan. So I got accepted in National Taiwan Ocean University, and then I also invited to interview section for the Malaysian government scholarship. And the last one, I also got accepted as a reserve candidate in Erasmus Mundus. But I think back then, like UK already takes my heart because I really want to study in the country which is using the English as their language. So I don't need to study or learn another language, even though I also the one who wants to become a polyglot. Like I like to study another or learn another language as well. Like I always open for that opportunity. That's about me.
That's awesome. So I guess you are destined to go to Newcastle anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah. So how's the scholarship process goes for the beasiswa pendidikan Indonesia?
Okay, so at that time it was the first ever scholarship, I think, from the Ministry of Education. So that was the first time they make a scholarship like separately from LPDP, which is like one of the most famous one in Indonesia, right? A lot of people know about LPDP. Even like whenever they ask me, I know like you come from LPDP. No, I'm not like that, right? So I always told like I'm not come from LPDP. So basically, the funding was come from the same sources from the Ministry of Economic from Indonesia, right? And then, but the one who organized it is the Ministry of Education from Indonesia. So the process is quite simple back then, I think, because I just need to apply for a scholarship. I just need to send the form on the platform online website, and then Voila, it just like announce it that I accepted, so I don't need any other for example interview section, because I already like apply and submit my LOA, letter of acceptance. So, and also on to get the letter of acceptance, they want the unconditional one, so without any conditional. So I already have my own IELTS test certificate. So from the Ministry of Education, they believe that it is the right time for them to give me the scholarship as well. So there's not a lot of process at that time, but after that, like the next year, the next batch for the scholarship, it's kind of quite complicated, so they have an interview section. So that's why, again, like I told to myself and all of my friends, that was my destiny. Like I got this
definitely.
which is like simple application like that. But we just like really confused back then, because there's no clarification from Ministry of Education about the scholarship, like whether we need to go into the next stage, for example, another task, for example, like a psychological test or interview test, but they just didn't give us any brief about that. But in the end of the day, on July, like before August, I think they told us that we are all already accepted and we are all ready to not to fix, but to make an appointment for our visa to go to the UK, because it was still in Corona era as well. So I need to do a quarantine in London for 10 days, which is quite expensive, but they cover all of the stuff. So
That's
it's
nice.
not a big problem for the scholarship.
Yeah, so that must be nice, right? I mean, I guess it's a fully funded scholarship, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's a fully funded scholarship.
That's awesome. So yeah, how was your experience in UK? I mean, Indonesia and UK, it's two separate worlds. It's definitely a very huge difference, and also
Exactly.
how did you deal with the culture shock with the new environment and food and everything?
Okay. I'm a food lover, so let's talk about food first. So it's so much difference between Indonesia and the UK food. Like I love spicy food, and I couldn't find it in the UK. Even like to find a spicy chili, it's kind of hard. I need to go to one of the shop which is like quite far from my place in Newcastle. So I need to go. It's not above the hills, but I mean like it's quite hilly the way to go there. So it's quite tired for me. So I need to get used to it into the UK food, which is, I think it's quite bland or tasteless for me. I'm sorry, UK, but this is the fact. Sorry, but I love UK. Okay, so sometimes I also I also went to the Asian food, but it's quite expensive because like to find out the spices is really hard and rare in the UK. That's one of my culture shock. So I only find out the Indian food, which is Indian food was everywhere at that time in the
Yeah.
Newcastle as well, and Thailand food. Thailand food is my healing because whenever I miss Indonesian food, I will go to the Thailand food because it tastes
Yeah,
almost the same with the
I
spice.
get that.
Yeah, not like London. London has a lot of variety of food. Like they have their own market, so there are a lot of Indonesian food as well, Malaysian food, Asian food. But Newcastle, it's not. It's I could say it's not a rural place in Newcastle. So I
Mhm.
want people to see that Newcastle is not that quiet because there are a lot of stuff to do in Newcastle as
Mhm.
well compared to another city such as Durham, which is close to Newcastle. I prefer Newcastle, not because I live there, but I experience it, I think.
Mhm.
So back again about the food, I think like London has a lot of variety of food, while in the Newcastle is not as much as London, but I still can survive by cooking, even though it is expensive. I'm not a good cook back then, but I try my best because, for example, I miss ketoprak, I miss
Yeah.
somai, which is Indonesian food. So I need to deal with that. So I need to like make it by my own self. That's for the food. For another culture shock was a lot of people tend to tell me like whenever we want to go to the UK or Western area, people over there are rude. But I didn't find it like that. Like probably I'm not trying to generalize everything here,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
I travel to another countries as well in the Europe. I'm not trying to discredit another countries as well, but
Mhm.
whenever I went to the Europe back then, I always miss UK. Like they are quite friendly for me and they are quite helping in any other aspects, like in almost aspect of life. For example, on daily basis, when I try to open the door and I find like it is hard to open the door, they will help me. And then whenever like I open the door for them, they always say thank you, which is
Mhm.
like sometimes it's not gonna happen in Indonesia as well. Sometimes,
Yeah.
even though people think like Indonesia is the most polite one in the world, or probably the friendliest one in the world, but again, I'm not trying to generalize, but
Yeah.
the people I found in the UK was like that. So I was quite happy with those kind of environment, even though I'm not gonna lie, like there are a lot of like dark side, probably like a lot of people probably like a drunk in the street, but that's quite normal for me. That's also a culture shock for me. But I feel safe whenever when I was in the UK like that. Like I never think like they have like in Indonesia, begal,
Yeah,
someone
I don't think so, right?
yeah, I don't think so. And then I feel like it's quite a culture shock for me. Yeah, talking about criminal, probably they have a lot of criminal as well, but I
Yeah.
I didn't find something like that extreme like in Indonesia. So
Mhm.
it's on those particular topic. I think like I like UK. That's one of my culture shock. I think one of the best culture shock that I had was they almost never use money like the cash, so they always use cashless. So whenever I went anywhere, I always bring my own card. But back then I didn't find out I don't have my card yet because when I fly from Indonesia to UK, so I need to like organize it, and also I need to make it in the UK as well for
Yeah.
UK bank account for the scholarship requirement as well. Back then I tried to shop in one of the grocery shop. Basically, it just in the campus, so inside the campus. So I didn't bring my card because I don't have the card back then. So I
Mhm.
just used my money cash. So that was one of my culture shock because it's quite embarrassing for me, but interesting story as well. So I just give £5 back then. So the price was I think £4 and blah blah blah. I forget. I
Yeah.
bought a candy, and then one man, which is the cashier, just like give a hand for me. I don't know what happened back then. So he just like this, and I give a toss like that. Like he was so confused, and I was so confused as well. Like what happened? And then he just like dropped one coin, and I just understand. Oh, this is my change. So I need to take all of the change. That's quite interesting because of the language barrier as well. Because back then that was my first time study abroad, right?
Yeah.
And first time went abroad like from Indonesia, which is just went to the UK, make me a little bit shocked about the language. So far I just know about British accent,
Yeah.
but inside this British, inside that Great Britain, there are a lot of accent, especially Scottish and also Geordie, which is Newcastle accent, which is
Mhm.
quite confusing for me. At the first day I was in the class, so I had a project, like group project. So all of my members in that team were from UK.
Mhm.
Most of them come from Scotland, and one of them was from Newcastle. So I could not understand every single word. So I just like whenever they mumbling, I just like be quiet. And one of the girl asked me like, what happened? They speak. I told them like, you speak guys too fast. I couldn't understand any single word. And they try to embrace me and give me a shot like, okay, we will speak like a little bit slowly. That's quite interesting for me because the culture
Mhm.
shock. Like I already in the UK, but I don't understand their accent. Like
Yeah.
I don't understand what they're talking about. And there was also one moment when I was with my lecture with my supervisor, and then she just told me like "Happy Days," which is like it means like uh it's a wrap or it's finished, so you can go home. And I just answer like "Have a nice day too," and then she just like look at me like, what happened? But they never like mock at me or they
Yeah.
never preach at me. They always embracing, like they understand that that English is not my first language. So they
Mhm.
always like try to give me an opportunity to speak, an opportunity to understand more. And they are quite open for me. For example, in the email, like they always told me like, if you don't understand about this module, you can ask me directly, which is sometimes I didn't find those kind of stuff in Indonesia. Like whenever
Mhm.
after the module or the class stop, so we don't have any relation with the lecture. I mean, not a
Yeah,
special
yeah.
relation, but it's related to the module as well. So like
Mhm.
that's a culture shock for me.
Mhm. Yeah, I guess in Indonesia it's more like hierarchical in a way, you know.
Exactly,
Like you have
exactly.
like there's like a certain gap of
Mhm.
students and the professors.
Exactly.
Sometimes it's difficult to reach out to them too.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah.
mine. Perfect.
Interesting stories, Oka. Especially the fist bump. That's the best.
The best part.
Anyway, so how was your experience studying in Newcastle, in conclusion? And like, how do you think the teaching method or like the classes
Okay.
different from the way it is held in Indonesia?
Okay, that's a good question, an interesting one as well. I love to answer this because
Mhm.
this is what I'm looking for when I was studying in the UK, because I want to see like how much the difference between Indonesia and UK studying
Yeah.
method or learning method. Basically, it's just the same. Like the professor or the lecturer will explain something in the class, but I think like in the UK they more like engage with the student. I'm not trying to generalize again. In
Mhm.
Indonesia, like a lot of lecture as well, they also engage with the student as well. But in the UK, they more like appreciate what students did. For example,
Mhm.
I had one friend who came from the United States of America, if I'm not
Mhm.
mistaken, and she wasn't from marine or fishery field or even environmental field. He
Mhm.
was sorry, she was from international relation, if I'm not mistaken, which is
Mhm.
like the gap is quite far, right? It was quite
Yeah.
far. And then we need to explain something like the topic that we are really interested in for our dissertation. Back then we
Mhm.
call it dissertation, even though in Indonesia we call it thesis, right?
Yeah.
And then we need to talk about dissertation. So I give the explanation. So we need to make a poster. And then one of my friend that I mentioned before, like she just like draw a starfish, I think, on the paper and then take a
Mhm.
picture, and that's become a presentation. And the lecture give a very brief explanation and also a very good and I mean a proper feedback for her,
Mhm.
but the professor and also the lecturer never like mock her. Like I
Oh,
think it's
okay.
not gonna happen in Indonesia, because in
Yeah.
Indonesia they will feel like, oh, you are not appreciate me as a lecturer,
Mhm.
so you need to
Yeah.
prepare your best shot for the
Yeah.
presentation.
Yeah. Yeah.
While back then I got appreciated by my lecturer, because they told me with my friend, because it was on team. So they told me
Mhm.
like, how can you make those kind of poster? Which is I only use Canva, which is like basic one. There are a lot of
Mhm.
templates, so you just put anything inside it.
Yeah.
And they just like really surprised with those kind of design that I made. So I think like they don't care about the design sometimes, but when we make an effort into the design or into our work, they will like really appreciate it. Like they will give a good compliment for you, which is I didn't find it in Indonesia. Like they don't care because they don't want to be a bias like that probably in Indonesia. And then like they always care about the content in the UK, while in Indonesia we still think about the manner or attitude, probably how we deliver the speech, for example, in presentation. But they are not looking, they're not looking for those kind of terms. They're looking for the content. So even though your presentation was good probably back then, like, but the content was bad, so you will get a bad mark as well. So the content is really important. So sometimes I found out almost all of the lecturers were only explain the presentation in the plain white PowerPoint, which is like kind of annoying for me sometimes, because I like looking for I like to see any animation in the PowerPoint, because it makes me like get more interesting into that PowerPoint. But again, they believe in the content. And one last culture shock, I think, about the grade system, whether in compared to in Indonesia, it is easy for us, not try to generalize again, but I mean like it's quite easy for us to get 60 or 70 in Indonesia. People probably consider in Indonesia 60 or 70 was not that good, right?
That's like the passing grade.
Exactly. And then in the UK, when I got 60 or 70, I feel like I am over the moon at that time. Like I'm on the top of the world. Like I have this kind of marks, like 72, for example. It's already distinction, and it's so hard to get this kind of mark in the UK to get the 70. So whenever I get 50 or 60, I feel like, okay, I'm done. It means like this is my ability, so I can do that. At least I pass. So that's it. So it's kind of hard to get 60. But again, not try to generalize. Probably in another campus, it's super easy. Probably it's just a piece of cake to get those kind of marks. But in Newcastle, especially in my field of study or my study program, it's kind of hard or difficult. But still, I agree with all of the feedback that get from that given by the lectures. While in Indonesia, I think they don't want to give a feedback like one by one to student, like you are wrong in this side, why this one is incorrect. But in the UK, they will give us one by one feedback, which is interesting for me. That's the difference with Indonesia. I hope in the future Indonesia can apply this kind of system as well. Probably some of the university already apply this kind of system, but that is what the difference that I found out in the UK and Indonesia.
Nice. So after some time of studying in the UK, and it's also your first time studying abroad. So after gaining all these experiences and knowledge, what do you think are the benefits of studying abroad, and why international students, like why students in general should pursue their studies abroad?
I think there are a lot of things that we will get when we are going to the study abroad, because first one, we will talk about relation, right? Even though probably you told everyone or you tell everyone that you are introvert, but still you will get this kind of relation. At least with the admin staff, like, or with the university staff, you will engage with them, like you will get the benefit, like how to get a relation with them, like relationship, for example. It will benefit you in the future. You will engage with this kind of community, which will support you with your future career, which is like important for me in the global level, in international level. I think it will make a huge difference whether I mean like when you study in Indonesia, because the scope of the relation that you get is only probably in Indonesia. But whenever you go to study abroad, like you have international, which is the horizon way more broadened. So probably you will have a friend from France, from Spain, or even though from the same country as you, but you will engage with another student as well, which is comes to the second benefit, which is like you can improve your language skill as well. Like some of my friends told me like, I don't want to study abroad because after I study abroad, there's no guarantee that I will get a job easily. But no, for me, I think that will be a benefit for us. Let's talk about value. Compared to the one who struggle, I know like we are students struggle enough and sacrifice a lot of stuff when we are studying abroad and when we are studying inside our country as well. But the struggle was different. So I can value, I have the value that I can struggle in any situation in the UK, and then I come back to Indonesia with a good condition. As me, like when I was before I fly to the UK, I mean like just the similar one, but I bring those value. Probably people see like, you just like still as fat as before you go, but that's not the value. I mean like the value, like a lot of people will think like you have a good experience in the UK. Right now, it was proven for me, like whenever I try to apply to some freelance job and some job in the offline in
Mm-hmm.
my place in Bangka
Yeah.
Belitung, they always things like okay, you graduate from Newcastle University, from you study abroad, so I know that you have value, so I don't want to lose you, something like that.
Yeah.
Even though like there are a lot of more candidate like probably have a good skill more than me, but the value is not
Mm-hmm.
comparable to another student. So I think that's one of the benefit. Another benefit apart from the LinkedIn community and other than that,
Mm-hmm.
I think not about relation as well. Like I told you before, is the language, and also of course you can like if you love traveling, that's also a benefit for me, especially when I stayed
Yeah.
in the UK. I went to a lot of countries in the Europe because
Mm-hmm.
I fond traveling. Like I love traveling, so that's one of the benefits. So I almost try every single city in the UK. So whenever it comes to the weekend, I will go to probably Manchester, uh,
Mm-hmm.
Oxford, or London or Edinburgh. So I just want to visit my friend. It was nice, a good experience for me. I want to repeat it again, and not any single regret that come from my mind.
Yeah, that must be nice. So, if you could rate your experience from 1 to 10 about living in Newcastle,
Mhm.
what would it be?
It will be 9.9 out of 10. So
Oh,
the zero
amazing.
point 0.1 is only for the food because I don't like the food. So
Yeah.
yeah. Oh no, no. Let me fix this. Okay. 9.9 out of 10. So
Mhm.
0.01, 0.05 for the food. So because I don't like the food, and 0.05 for the weather because it's quite chill over there,
Yeah.
and then it's quite freezing for me. I cannot afford that. I hate that.
Hmm, hmm.
So
I get that.
9.9.
Yeah. Indonesian food is the best, I think
Exactly.
that's also one of the struggle of like when I was in China,
Mhm.
because you miss Indonesian food and there is not that many options out there. So
Mhm.
yeah, like what you said, I go to Thailand place. That's kind of like the similar thing that we can have.
Exactly.
At least that can be like a medicine a little bit, to heal
Exactly.
our crave for Indonesian food.
Exactly. Sometimes we feel homesick as well, right? With our food.
Yeah.
So that's one of the healing. By the way, I also right now teach students from China as well because
Mhm.
I work as a freelance teacher for English teacher in
Oh.
Tutu platform. It's called Tutu English from China. So
Mhm.
most of my students come, not most, but all of my students come from China. Some of them come from Xiamen, I think,
Shaman, yeah.
Beijing, Sichuan.
Mhm.
So sometimes we also talk about the food, like the spicy one, Sichuan soup, I think, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken. So it's kind of interesting. Like China is also one of the places that I really want to go probably in the future. I
Mhm.
don't know, for study or for whatever, as long as I have the opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. You should try. There are a lot
Definitely.
of interesting food. And apparently, I mean, this is something that I know after I come to China.
Mhm.
The food, the typical Chinese food we found in Indonesia is different
Oh,
than
really?
the one in China. Yeah, I think it's also like what you saw with Indonesian food. Like different regions have
Mhm.
their own kind of special dish.
Mhm.
And so that depends on which part of China you come.
Oh,
And
I
like, I
see.
think the typical Chinese food that we found here in Indonesia come from a certain region in China,
Mhm.
but that doesn't
Oh,
represent all of the Chinese food. Yeah, so it's very interesting.
interesting.
Yeah.
That was nice. Makes me
Yeah.
want to go to China as soon as possible to try the food. Only to try the food, okay?
Yeah, yeah. You should. All right. So yeah, one final thing for you is there any suggestions or tips that you'd like to share with future international students?
Okay. I think for all of international students who want to study abroad, just enjoy every moment. embrace all of the experience, like try everything in a good way or positive way, right? So if you want to have a lot of friends, try join any community. I even joined Korean community, Chinese community as well. Even though I'm not Chinese or I'm not Korean, I just want to have friends from those kind of country. That's just one of my imagination back then. So I just like get along with them and try to have a lot of friends. And then, for example, if you like something to do with your topic or with your research, go on, like use those kind of opportunity. Don't be shy with all of the lecture, especially from the UK. They are quite open, even though like they do not teach you, for example. So you can email them and just like have a chit chat for some for example, like that. So just embrace your moment, like enjoy your moment, enjoy everything you have. Believe me, the struggle is real. The sacrifice you put will be paid off in the future. So just enjoy it. That's my advice.
Yeah, thank you so much, Oka,
Thank
for the
you so
advice. I
much.
think it's
Yeah.
really good advice and such a good reminder for students out there to, just enjoy the moment, embrace
Exactly.
it, that you are able to be there in the foreign country, all the sacrifices you made, you're in your high school, maybe in your university, that are able to send you abroad. So that is awesome, and you should enjoy every moment of that.
Okay.
Thank
That's
you so
all.
much.
You're welcome,
Thank you so
Nadia.
much for your time. This
Yeah.
is really nice. I'm happy I can talk to another Indonesian and hear your
Exactly. Finally,
stories.
right?
Yeah.
It's nice to talk to you as well. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you,
All
Nadia.
right. Thank you then. Bye. Have a nice day,
Bye.
Oka.